All right, next up we will have wide receiver Elijah Sarratt. We'll start with
Recording
Zach,
in progress.
and then go to Mike.
I guess just, early on we've asked you, it feels like a lot this season about sort of week to week. Is it man, is it zone? What are the tendencies and coverage you see in the opponent? What do you see out of Miami and maybe the way that they're going to approach receivers at your position, at least what you can expect?
Yeah, from what we've talked about, what I've seen, they're mostly zone on the year, cover 4, cover 2, but they do run man a lot as well. I say that's the second coverage, cover 1. There are a lot of one high safeties most of the time, so they changed up between them. But from so far, it's either like cover 4, 2, or 1. Coach Heatherman, my brother actually knew him, played with them at JMU, speaks highly of him, so I'm sure it's going to be a challenging one. He's been having those boys flying around, so I'm sure they'll mix a couple coverages up, but it'll be a good one.
Yeah, Elijah, I want to take you back kind of after the 2023 season. JMU finishes the regular season. What are you aware that Kurt's kind of interviewing, or like was there anything in the locker room? Like what was kind of the mindset of the players, and what did you kind of become aware of that Indiana was a possibility?
Yeah, so towards the end of the year, there's definitely some rumors on Twitter and stuff. Everyone was talking about that he was taking calls or doing something, and then it was crazy. People were like even tracking his flight. I remember they tracked his flight all the way to Bloomington and stuff, and then like that next day or something, we were about to have a team meeting, and then like it got announced on Twitter. And then he came in and just basically told us, I got to take this job at Indiana. This was best for me. And then kind of went from there. But, yeah, and before that, yeah, people were tracking his flights, all rumors all on Twitter and stuff. So it was kind of crazy.
Top left to Pete, and then to Daniel.
Yeah, Elijah, I'm curious, what do you do in terms of getting amped for a game, pumped for a game? Like listen to music? Do you watch Gladiator? What do you do to get ready for a game like that?
Yeah, big music guy. I try not to be locked in all day. So, like in the mornings, I'm just chilling. Throw on Rod Wave is always the first person I turn on just because he's chill. He's a chill like rapper. Not too hype. And then I throw on some gospel a little bit just to keep me calm. Thank the Lord and everything. But as we get closer to the game, I have this playlist that I have right when we get to the stadium, and then I go out for my own little pregame warm up. That's when I turn it on, and then just from there it's just locking in and then just embracing the moment. I take a couple deep breaths when I'm on the field. Look at the stadium, embrace the moment, and then from there I'm ready to go.
Is it always the same playlist?
Yeah, always the same playlist. I add and like take stuff out of it if I'm listening to it or not listening to it. But yeah, it's the same playlist.
Stay front left to Daniel, and then Ravi.
When did you become a good jump ball wideout, and how do you try to build hand strength? Because it appears you have extremely strong hands.
Yeah, for real, I've always been pretty good at jump ball since I've been in high school. I just naturally been good at it, been able to adjust my body and stuff. But just blessed with that ability. Hands wise, really just the amount of catches I catch a day and the amount of work I put in. Really, that's all it is. A lot of after practice, I'm getting catches in. I don't really do too much like strengthening hand stuff and all that, but just catch footballs. That's really it.
How many do you try to catch each day?
I always get at least 100 after practice, and then in between practice I don't really count. But like if I'm just sitting around while we're in special teams or something, I go with the quarterbacks and catch some passes. So just try to accumulate as much as I can.
Go front left to Ravi, and then Alexa.
So you went to Fernando at some point, there was a story out there, and looked at some of the back shoulder throws from some NFL guys and said, let's put this in. Take us through that sort of, which NFL guys did you see? Why did you think, hey, we can add this? And kind of take us through the conversations with Nando and kind of how that played out.
Yeah, so it was Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams to be specific. I've always since I've been watching Devontae Adams and since he's been with Aaron Rodgers, he's done a great job of just getting a release off the ball, and then like around 12, 14 yards, Aaron Rodgers is throwing a laser and he just falls out and it drops in the bucket. And I tend to win off the line more times than not, so I felt like I had a good chance of it. Now I know like Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, that's like a whole nother level that I someday will pray I can reach to. But since it's Fernando, he was with it. On that same day after practice, we got a couple reps in, just trying to work it, just be similar with how they were looking with it, and then just went from there. And then just communication after that. I try not to be picky. I just try to tell him to like just let me get my hands on it, and he does a great job of putting it on the money, and then we just go from there.
Was that in from week one, or did that?
No, it wasn't in from week one actually. I forget when it was. Maybe towards as we got closer to that Illinois game is when I sent it to him, and then from there we just kind of like remind each other about it and go from there. Yeah.
Top right to Alexa and then Josh.
Elijah, as you guys prepare, Coach Signetti has said, we're treating this like we have every week, and it's something that you have done through the playoff, and it's worked. So how have you guys been able to do that, and what do you think he's been able to impart in you so that you have been able to kind of come in calm, cool, collected?
Yeah, just really, like you said, just keeping things the same, eliminating the clutter as we always do, and just keeping things in the locker room. We understand there's going to be a lot of talk on social media about how big the game is, how big the moment is, but like we're really treating it like any other game. Like that's what you have to do. You don't want to make the moment bigger than it is. We understand it's a national championship and a lot of people are going to be watching, but we're going to treat this practice week the same. Our mentality is going to be the same. We're just going to try to go in, work every single day up until leading up to that game.
Staying right with Josh and then Joe.
Kind of going back to 2023, when you had a conversation with Coach Sig, do you remember it at all? Do you have any recollection of it? And how happy are you that it worked out?
When I came on my visit here?
Yes.
Yeah, I do. I remember same thing like he always is. Walked in the office here, his feet's kicked up, he's chilling. He's like, "How do you like it here?" We're chopping it up. He's asking me what other visits I wanted to. I told him that he didn't really like that answer. And then we just kind of talked. He was like, "This is the place for you. I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to get you the ball. And you're cool. The strength staff and everybody." And that's kind of all I needed to hear. He told me about Kurt. He said how good Kurt is, how good he think he is, which Kurt it lived up to that and more. And just went from there. After shaking his hand and stuff, I knew it was the best fit for me, just with the comfortability and the familiarity and everything.
From Joe and then Zach B.
Signetti's talked about, changing the way people think and, like you mentioned, eliminating all the noise and clutter.
Mm-hmm.
For you personally, what goes into, how do you train your mind to get to that point?
Yeah, it's really a daily process, and really believing what he says. When he says don't pay attention to all the outside noise, you actually have to try not to do it. Since the Big Ten championship, I deleted Twitter each week just because I try to really embrace what he's saying and not really worry about what everyone else is saying. But just a daily process of listening to what he's saying and then really believing in it and asserting it to yourself.
Zach B. and then Eli.
Coach Sig said yesterday that this group, out of every team he's ever had, is the best at taking the message that he gives and then putting that onto the field. So why are you guys so good at that? What makes you the best at that?
Yeah, I think we got a great group of vets around. Just a great group of vets that have been there, done that, and we believe what he's saying. We understand what he's saying has been working. So vets have been a great job of keeping us in the moment, keeping the young guys on their toes and everything. And just it really hasn't been too hard. We understand our goal and we understand how we're going to get to our goal, and it's just by doing what we've been doing, staying in the moment.
We'll go Eli, and then we'll take one question from Zoom to Lou.
Elijah, obviously Miami's run defense very, very prominent this season. I'm just kind of curious. I know it's kind of a broad question, but if it gets to a point to where the running game can't get going more for you guys to have opportunities outside, if it gets to that point, how comfortable, confident are you feeling if it gets into that situation where Mendoza can drop back and find you guys more?
Yeah, I'm always comfortable when you got someone like Fernando back there throwing you the ball. And then, of course, I believe in myself and the guys in the receiver room with me. So I'm always confident no matter who we're going against, no matter if it's Miami, no matter if it's Indiana State. So very, very confident in my beliefs. I understand it's going to be a challenge, of course. They're a great team. They're in the national championship for a reason. But I always go into every game being confident.
All right, go ahead and wrap us up, Lou.
Elijah, you've answered this to some degree since I raised my hand with the question, but you talk a lot about blocking out the noise, but you can't ignore what it is. And if you look over your shoulder, you'll see the national championship banner all over the place. But in your quieter moments with yourself, do you ever talk to yourself and just say, "This is kind of fun that we're here and we're doing this"? And that we are playing for a national championship. You actually have those moments for yourself without external noise.
Yeah, 100%. Especially just these last couple weeks, knowing that it's my last couple weeks here in the facility here in Bloomington playing with this team. I've definitely, like, when I'm home talking to my mom or dad, my brothers, I'm like, dang, like it's just crazy how everything works out. Like, just to be here in this moment, yeah, it's definitely exciting. I'm trying to be calm because I understand, like, it's like nothing really matters too much unless we win that game. But I definitely, these last couple weeks, I've been like, man, like, just playing in the big bowl games that we have, Rose Bowl, Peach Bowl, all that. It's been very, very cool just growing up watching these games, watching legends play in these games, and then for allowing me to make some plays and see my guys make some plays in these games, it's been pretty exciting.
Great. Thanks, Elijah.
Sure. Thank y'all. Have a good one.
Offensive lineman Pat Coogan. We'll start with Brady and then go to Daniel.
Yeah, Pat, obviously a lot has been made, again, of a team that's big, strong, fast, physical, violent was the word Riley used. We heard that before Ohio State, before Oregon. You guys heard it. But when you look at them as a football, take the noise off the table. Talk to me as a guy who's going to be in the trenches. What do you see from Miami's defensive line and defense overall?
Well, they are. They are very physical, very violent. They're special players, especially on the outside, and it's not like their interior drops off at all either. Just all across the board, really talented players. The physical attributes are there, and they maximize their physical attributes. They fly around, and they're a fast, violent group that's coached really well and do their jobs well. So it's going to be a huge challenge for us and one we got to prepare for and be ready for.
Right, we'll go Daniel and then Zach. O.
As a guy who played on this huge stage last year, right, how do you try to maybe pull from that experience, try to impart what you learned last year with this whole, squad around you that really hasn't experienced this game yet?
Yeah, I think it's been similar to what we've been talking about, during this whole playoff run, is just being where our feet are and really maximizing each day and each opportunity, maximizing our practices, making sure we go out on that practice field and have the best day possible, and really taking what we're learning in the meetings and putting it onto the field. Because at the end of the day, it's another football game, right? The stage is big. The stage has been big the past couple weeks. So the game's in between the white lines. And I think we've done a good job of having that headspace and having that mindset, never making it bigger than it is, and really just making sure we're putting in the work and putting in the prep so that when we get to game day, we put our best foot forward.
I guess a schematic question, but you guys we've seen more six lineman stuff recently. Does that change anything for you as a center, or do you kind of remain just between the tackles in terms of your checks, your reads, the stuff you've got to communicate?
Are you saying when
you bring in the extra lineman just to go a little bit heavy?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a package that we have. The defense could sub in their heavier package in relation to that. So I'm always aware of it, definitely. Sometimes they don't match, though. Oregon matched a few times, and then other times they didn't. Versus 11 personnel, they went, heavier, which they never did during the season. They went 5-2, and then other times, when we brought in that heavier package, they stayed in 4-2 base. So you just always got to be aware of it, especially as a center, and because the specific plays that are within that package, consists of a specific mic ID. So, yeah, you got to be aware of it for sure.
We'll go Mike in and then Pete.
Kurt said he appreciated your effort being 20 yards down the field on the fumble recovery, but he said you had some work to do on your technique with falling on the ball. Did he give you a hard time in the moment or any time after that?
No, I haven't heard anything from him, but there's always stuff to improve on. We actually did work on that. We did a drill early in fall camp, at the end of practices, just falling on fumbles and stuff. So we've worked on it, believe it or not. There's always room to improve.
We'll go top left to Pete.
Yeah, Pat, I wanted to follow up on that. Just the mindset that enabled you to be 20 yards down the field. Is that something you try to do all the time, and just the approach it takes to show that level of effort?
Yeah, I think You know, it's definitely a mindset that has been instilled in me from an early age, way back when, just chasing after the ball, and because you really never know, right? And those abilities to, hop on loose balls can really change the game and change the outcome of a game. And they happen so often, but they're big moments. They're really big moments. So it's happened a few times to me in my career. Yeah, and any one of us could have been in that position because any one of us runs after the ball and takes great pride in that. And it just so happened that the ball bounced our way and bounced my way. So I was happy to be there for my quarterback because he's been there for me many times and has escaped, pressure or whatever it may be. So he's had my back numerous times. So I was happy to have his runs.
Second left to Jim and then Zach B.
Pat, with the stakes, what they are, I don't know if this is the toughest defensive line you guys have faced all year or not, but with the stakes added in there and how good that they are, is that pressure on you guys as a line to succeed, or is it relishing the challenge, or a little of both?
Well, I think it's certainly, one of the best, but at the same time, we always take great pride in protecting the quarterback no matter who we're playing. And I think that is just a absolute key emphasis for us this week is to protect the quarterback and obviously run the ball. That's part of who we are and our DNA. But no matter who we're playing, we have to protect the quarterback. We have to protect the quarterback in every situation, every down. We know how special he can be, and we know how good our offense can be when we give him the time to execute. So we no matter who we're playing, we need to protect the quarterback, and it's the same message this week.
Go left to Zach B and then Joe.
Coach Sig said yesterday that this team is the best he's ever had at taking the message he gives you guys and putting it onto the field. So from your perspective, what makes this team so receptive to his message?
Certainly, I think, he always says it, and it's true. It's a very veteran group. It's a mature group. It's a group that's been around the block, has played a lot of football, and a group that knows how to take messages and put them on the field because of just how much football we've played, how much football, a lot of guys have played together and sort of like that. So I think we've done a great job of, like he kind of said, just taking that mindset and putting it into in between the white lines. But it certainly starts with him and just the mindset that he implements within our program. And even starting back in January, February, he's saying the same stuff he's saying, before we walk out for the Peach Bowl, right? So the messages don't really change. So I think that's why we see that success, because it's ingrained in our minds.
We'll go Joe and then Josh.
You mentioned, for this run, last year's run, being where your feet are, maximizing, the practice days, everything leading up to these games. When you're having these high highs, I guess what went into training your mind to reach that point where you can be grounded, not make the moment too big?
Yeah, I've learned from a lot of great veteran leadership at an early age. A lot of great coaches. This is my 5th year. I've played a lot of football. I've been around success. I've been around failure. I've been around, everything in between. So I've kind of just learned throughout the years of what really matters in the moment. Obviously how to win with class, but also how to handle failure. So I think everything in between has molded me and my mindset. And certainly, there's a great amount of joy after victories, and there's a great amount of, I'm just very proud of that, the group and stuff like that. But I also understand and know how much more there is to get done. Because I've been in those shoes, and I think, especially last year, that playoff experience helped me and kind of just shaped me and my mindset. But at the end of the day, I've been around it all, it feels like. So it's really just shaped me kind of into the guy I am today, but also surely the player, right? And just how I handle everything, success, failure, adversity, and everything in between.
We'll take 3 more. We'll go Josh, Alexa, and then wrap up with Eli.
You guys have been fighting the outside noise and just blocking it out Most of the time it was negative. Now here you are. You see promos on ESPN. Anytime you turn on the TV, there's a promo. You guys are talked about. How do you guys filter out the good noise?
Yeah, well, we understand that none of that outside noise is exactly what it is. It's outside, and it has no impact on our ability to go perform on the football field. It's not going to score us any touchdowns. It's not going to convert any third downs. Defensively, it's not going to stop any third downs or get us off the field. Like, that's exactly what it is. It's all clutter. It's all noise. It's all distraction. And like I said, we have a very veteran group and a mature group. And certainly Coach Sig instills that mindset of eliminate all noise and clutter. And we really do. We try our best to. You know, we're humans as well, so sometimes it does get difficult. But at the same time, I believe we've done a great job of doing so. And we need to continue to do so.
You talked a little bit about pulling from your experience from last year, but how important is getting back to kind of a normal week of preparation after having so much time in between the Rose Bowl and the Peach Bowl and the end of the season?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, we really are starting a normal week here, so I think it's getting everyone back into the groove and normal preparation. Coach Sig and Coach Dio have done a great job of implementing schedules that make sense and schedules that help us and maximize the hours within the building. So I'm excited for the work week. It's going to be a great week of prep, and we just got to put in the work.
We'll wrap with Eli, second row on your right. Just maybe taking away the experience of being in the national championship last year. Is there a national championship game previously that stands out to you most growing up? And which game would that be, do you think?
Man, that's a great question. Probably the one I remember vividly because I was in high school was 2019 LSU. That was a big year. And just the Alabama years, kind of growing up in the mid-2010s or whenever that was. Besides that, I mean, it feels like it's all mixed together now. But, those couple times.
Great. Thanks, Pat.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
All right, everyone. We have linebacker Aiden Fisher. We'll start with Mike and then go to Zach.
Yeah, Aiden, can you go back to the end of the 23 season after? Did you guys expect Kurt to stay at JMU? What were you guys kind of hearing as players at the time? And then, what was kind of your thoughts when that was all kind of going down that week where, right after the season?
Yeah, after the last game, I don't think anybody really expected him to leave. And then, we had some fans that were tracking flights in and out. So then once we saw it was Bloomington, we all looked up, what is Bloomington? And then, I was with all my buddies at JMU, and they all looked at me, and they're like, well, you're going to Indiana. And it was just a kind of a little funny scenario. But I don't know if anybody really expected him to leave or to, come here, but I'm sure glad he did.
Did he address the team at all?
Recording in progress.
Yeah, he addressed the team in a team meeting before we started the bowl prep for the Armed Forces Bowl. He initially planned on, coaching us in that bowl game. Obviously, that's not how business, kind of went down. And, that was kind of it after that.
Were you tracking flights?
I was not tracking flights, no.
I want to ask, we've talked to you guys about like the three linebacker setup and how it's evolved for you guys and how much you guys trust it. How much does it allow you maybe, a year ago, I think it felt like we were asking everyone on the defense about that defensive line.
Right.
How much does that three linebacker setup maybe allow you guys to be creative with what you do on the defensive line because you can always trust that you can put four down and you don't have to worry about coverage versus playing heavy against the run, just the versatility and maybe the sort of, I guess, the dynamism that having all three of you on the field when you go to those sets really gives the defense?
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of sets with a lot of, three linebacker sets. We can show up internal. We can show up on the edge. We can have somebody kind of play like our rover spot. We can play the hokey/stud spot. We just have guys that can play all over the field. And that helps us, in certain situations, down and distance, things like that. But it makes our defense a lot more multiple, being able to blitz different guys, drop different guys. And Coach Haynes has, showed y'all he doesn't care who he drops. If it's a 305-pound D tackle or linebacker, so being able to have those guys on the field, it's it helps our defense, be a little more multiple, but it's also a big thing for the offense because you have no clue who's coming and who's not. And it's huge to have those guys that have built their confidence. They're playing the way they are right now. We're at a good spot with the three linebacker set.
Go Daniel on the left and then Jeff.
I've asked a lot about the way that Sig has just changed habits of guys he coaches. As a guy who appears quite close with him, are there times off field you walk around, you say, like, this is new for me, like I've learned how to live this way, how to operate that way because of Sig?
All the time. I was on the phone with my mom about 2 days ago, and I don't even remember what we were talking about. And I was like, yeah, I just hope like somebody just doesn't get complacent. And I was like, wow, like I've been with Sig for way too long. And she was like, yeah, I said the same thing the other day. Like she was using the word complacent. So it's just funny, like when you've been with somebody for so long, you start like kind of talking like them a little bit. But everything he talks about is true, like in football and in life. Complacency kills. Everything about like just the way he makes his football program makes you a better person too. I think my mom gets that when I'm texting her, no more talking about the last game, on to the next. So it's funny how long I've been with him and, the things that will kind of rub off on me.
So Jeff on your left and then Zach B.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have had a chance to look at the metrics, but they say the metrics suggest you guys are one of the best teams in the country in the last 15, maybe 20 years. Are you guys aware of it? And even if you are or aren't, why do you think you guys have played to a standard that's not excellence this year, but has some historical context to it?
Yeah, I'll save that question for after this next game. It won't mean really anything unless we walk away with a win in this game. I'm proud of where the team's at right now. I think we're playing well all together. We got to put it on the field, Monday night.
Go on your right to Zach B and then Joe.
I think Sig said yesterday something along the lines of this team, out of any team he's had, has done better at adhering to the message and kind of going along with that. Why is that so? Why have you guys been able to adhere to that message so well?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, we all know, Sig's been in these positions before. He's played in big games, and at the end of the day, all of his players just want to do is win. So whatever he, deems is the most important thing, we're going to follow that. We have an older team of, veteran leadership that has been in these big games. We've been in the situations that we're, facing right now. So it's all about, taking the past experiences and kind of moving forward with them. Obviously, Coach Sig does a great job with that. But having the older guys that we have, it's taking that message and then, relaying it to the younger guys, relaying it to your room. Our assistant coaches do a great job with it too. So, it's just kind of making sure we're all adapted to just one message and that we're on the same page at all times.
We'll go Joe and then Eli.
Fernando talked after the Peach Bowl about delayed gratification being a mindset that this team really embodies, where you are able to reset after these high highs. How do you train your own mind? Like, what goes into it to have these moments reset and just move on, treat every game, like he said, as the national championship?
Yeah, well, the good thing is I think we built a couple experiences off of doing that. The last probably 2 months has been a lot of highs for us. And then, there's been some lows in there too, but it's all about, take it, enjoy it for the moment, and then move on. And I think when you get in the postseason especially, that's how you have to live. We took the 24 hours after the Peach Bowl, the Rose Bowl, to enjoy it, and then you're on to the next thing. And I think that's why, we just keep moving forward. We're not satisfied with anything. We just want to, earn more opportunities to play with each other, earn more opportunities to prove ourselves as a team and as individuals. And I think that's just how you got to keep moving to be successful.
And you were it was brought up that, how historic this team has sort of become over this year. And over the last month, it's kind of turned into you guys are favorites heading into each and every game, it seems so far. It's going to be the same next week. But also, how vital is it to keep that chip on your shoulder mentality when you are cream of the crop right now?
Yeah, we know it'll mean nothing if we don't walk away with a win in this game. So I don't think anybody's really paying any attention to all the stuff that people are putting out there. We looked at the film. We have a lot to clean up from that Oregon film. A lot of sloppy plays, especially in the second half as a defense, and then the one long drive they had before the half. So we know there's so much more room for improvement. So all the things that you guys have pointed out and the historical things doesn't really mean anything to us right now. We're all focused on Miami. They're a great team that has a lot of weapons and a really good O-line, at least on the offensive side. So we have a lot to deal with and a lot to handle, but everything else will take care of itself, and you just got to win this game.
Sig told us yesterday that he was going to address in the team meeting that the the worst thing you guys could do was make this game bigger than it could be. Even though it is the biggest game, how do you, as one of the older guys, as a veteran, as a leader, kind of keep that into perspective and kind of disseminate that message to the younger guys?
Yeah, I think it's kind of two sides for me. It's a 4-quarter football game. It's going to be the same amount of time. You're playing it on grass. You're still in, helmet, cleats, and pads. It's just football. And the other thing that I told the linebackers yesterday is it's an opportunity that's rare. So I just kind of encourage everybody to, block everything out for 1 week. I asked them just to give me 1 week of everything they have, and just prepare like it's your last game of the season. So I just need everybody to kind of understand the opportunity we're having right now. At the end of the day, we're going to prepare the same way we prepared for Old Dominion in week 1, just because that's the way we're wired, the way we do things. And if not, it's a disservice to yourself and your team. So I think just making sure we're on top of everything, but knowing that this opportunity is rare, put your everything into it, so you can walk off the field with no regrets. And it's something that you'll hold with you for a really long time.
We'll go top left to Pete.
Yeah, Aiden, when you face a team that has I think the quarterback's thrown for 3,500 yards, you got a 1,000-yard rusher, close to a 1,000-yard receiver, what kind of problems does that present?
Yeah, they're really balanced on offense. Great O-line, great running backs. Receivers are great. They have somebody who can break a game in number 10. And then a good quarterback who's an experienced veteran who's been doing this for a while now. And then a really good OC with a good scheme. So when you put all those things together, you get an elite offense. That's exactly who they've been throughout the playoffs, throughout the whole regular season. It's definitely a big challenge for us that we're excited for. But it's all about, limiting their explosive plays and stopping the run, first of all. They've had a lot of success running the ball. They have great running backs and a really good O-line. So, it's going to be on us as a D-line and linebackers and front seven to stop that first. And then, once the pass game gets going, they get dangerous too. So it's a lot to, kind of minimize for them. But, great offense that we're excited for the opportunity to, match up against them.
All right, and then we'll have time for one question from the Zoom. Go ahead, Mike Schumann.
Yeah, and I just wanted to ask you about the way you guys have started games. It seems like several games I can think of off the top of my head, you guys have had sacks or interceptions. Like, is there anything that goes into that makes that first drive unique for you guys, or is that just the way it's played out?
It's just the way it's played out. I've seen all the stuff about, different things with our team. It's just funny and kind of ridiculous to me. But, we watch film, we study, we prepare. I know a lot of people have put different things out. We just do a great job preparing. We have, hints, we have things that we can see within our preparation. And then we have the best D coordinator in college football. So when you match up those things, you get off to fast starts as a defense. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Aiden.
I appreciate it.
All right, we have tight end Riley Nowakowski. We'll start with Pete and then go to Mike.
Hey, Riley, when you look at Miami's defense, they have some aggressive defensive end. Just your thoughts on the defense and the problems they present.
They're fast, they're physical, and they're violent. It's kind of what they pride themselves on, just being a violent, physical team, and it shows on the film and at all three levels. The D lines, you got those two edges that are real. Those are good players. So they play really violent, and then linebackers are filling gaps, and then you even got guys on the third level, safeties, cornerbacks coming down and really sticking people. So I think that's probably one of their greatest strengths, just how violent they play and how fast they play. They're not worried about making mistakes. They're not worried about they know that their brother's gonna have their back. They're all rallying to the ball and they're all chasing it. So I think that's probably like their biggest advantage, would just be how violent, how fast they play.
Thank you.
Stand your left with Mike and then go to Zach.
Right. When at Wisconsin your last year, how aware were you of Kurt's kind of viral moments? Did any of them come across your timeline or social media? Did you see any of his kind of things? And how aware were you of him sort of even before, obviously you got in the transfer portal and things like that?
So a little bit, obviously the Google Me one had come across my Instagram feed. But honestly, in season, you're just kind of in your own little bubble, so you don't see a whole lot going on outside. So I really wasn't, obviously I was aware of kind of, the standings of the Big Ten and how Indiana was doing. But other than that, like, I wasn't super aware of Coach Signetti and kind of what he was doing. Just, they weren't on our schedule, so I was just kind of just not in my mind at the time. So really, it was once I got into the transfer portal, then I started obviously just kind of looking at college football as a whole, and as you kind of do at the end of the season, you just kind of figure out where everybody ended up and kind of how everything shook out, and then I really was like, oh wow, like that's really something special, to turn that team around like that. So that was kind of when it really hit for me was after our last game of the season. I kind of checked everything out. Want to see who made the bowl game, see all that stuff. So that's kind of when I figured that out.
Same left with Zach, and then go to Daniel.
We asked you guys a lot before the Rose Bowl about sort of losing that weekly rhythm of recover, prep, game, recover, prep, game. How much does it feel like you kind of have that back? I understand it's a little bit more of a gap between the Peach Bowl and the national title game, but how much more does it feel like maybe from the Rose Bowl to the Peach Bowl to this game you have kind of that rhythm back, at least in kind of this confined space at the end of the season?
Yeah, no, it definitely feels like we're right back in it, which I personally appreciate. It's just kind of that rhythm, both mentally and physically that your body just gets in of just prepping and getting back to playing shape. So I've appreciated it a lot, and we're trying our best. Obviously, Sig really values his kind of his rhythm too, and being in our normal schedule. So I think it's been really good, and we're trying our best this week to continue that normal schedule, and just kind of keep it rolling, because I think that's the best way to do is just approach every game kind of the same way.
We'll go Daniel and then Ravi.
When you came in here, I think it might have been after the playoff selection show, you said that Signetti has this mindset that he instills in you guys and works as hard like he hasn't won a game like ever.
Mm-hmm.
How does he try to instill that? And like when you are like the top team, you're playing huge game this weekend. Like, I mean, how much does it help you guys to have a chip like that instilled already when it's like this guy's won everywhere he's been, but he still works like he hasn't?
Mm-hmm. I mean, first of all, just he does it by example, right? He comes in every day, 4 or 5 a.m. and is watching film until everybody's left the stadium. So I think that's the first thing. But then, I mean, every single time he talks to us, he's gonna hammer on the point that like nothing that we got before is gonna earn us anything in the future. Like every single game's got to be approached the exact same way. And I think just having that kind of be hammered into your head, every single time you essentially see him and hear him talk, it just is, it eventually just gets the message across. I mean, like when that's all you hear, that's just like kind of all you think about. So I think it's just kind of always reminding us, and honestly, personally, from his point of view, like never getting complacent, because I mean, complacency's real easy when you're winning games and you're doing well. So it's just kind of him just not getting complacent, and he just kind of pushes that down onto all of us, and we all just kind of attach onto it and ride with it.
We'll go Ravi and then Josh.
Yeah, Charlie Becker's really emerged. What has led to that, and just sort of you've seen it happen in practice? Help us understand a little more why he's gone from where he was to, really an elite receiver now.
Yeah, I mean, I think Charlie's always had the skill. He's always had the potential. I mean, I watched him through spring ball, through fall camp, and I was like, wow, this kid's a phenomenal receiver. And obviously we just had a loaded receiver room at the beginning of the year, with Coop, EJ, and E. So we just started off with them, and I think EJ got a little banged up one game, and so Charlie ended up coming in, and I think Charlie always had that potential, but it was just it's a really skilled room, a little older room that was in front of him. So then he got that opportunity and he made the most of it. I think if you asked anybody on this team, before he started getting as much attention and as much time as he's got, if he was able to do that stuff, I think everybody in the locker room would be fully confident that he had that skill. But it was just a matter of showing the rest of the world. And we got a lot of guys on our team that are like that. It's a very next man up mentality, and we don't feel like there's a lot of drop off. When we do go to that next man. I think a guy like Charlie, he's got that star potential. So it just goes to show that it's just all about getting that opportunity, and he seized it.
We'll go Josh on your right, then Joe.
You guys talk a lot about filtering out all the noise and clutter. Obviously, you turn on the TV, you see all this positive noise, you see promos for the game next week. How do you guys filter that out when you're just watching TV or something like that in your house?
Yeah, so I mean, it's definitely me personally. I like to just switch the TV off. I mean, I don't really watch. I don't watch a lot of TV during the week, but I mean, even in the training rooms, like we got TVs in the training room just going on, just normal sports stuff, like you said, just watching stuff. The other day, ESPN was like talking about the national championship, and I just went over to the monitor. I turned it off because I was like, we don't need to hear this. We try and eliminate all that. Whether it's good or bad. We don't need to hear the talk about us. I think that's kind of the messaging throughout the team is, you don't need to be going on social media searching up your name or checking out what they have to say to us. I will say that it's probably a little bit better stuff now than maybe at the beginning of the season. People might have a little more belief, but either way, good or bad, it doesn't really help us out much. Everybody can say whatever they want about us. Same thing. It's not going to help us win a game. So we just kind of have to tune that stuff out, and I think the whole team's kind of in on that.
Joe and Zach B.
When you're all chasing this common goal of a national championship and you have these high highs like, Big Ten championship win, Rose Bowl, etc., Cignetti's talked about changing the way people think. What goes in personally? Like, how do you train your mind to stay so level-headed through this journey?
Yeah, I mean, me personally, I feel like that's kind of how I was raised. My parents always told me, never get too high, never get too low. So that's kind of something that I feel like I've carried with me through my whole life. And I think a big thing is, SIG brings in people that are like-minded in that way, right? Like, he's not going to bring in, a lot of big, flashy guys. Like he's big on character, when he brings in, when he chooses who he wants here. And I think that really helps out a lot because, if you have, a big group of guys that, are all of good character and, kind of have a similar mindset, like you can kind of pull some guys along, that might not fully be there yet. I think that's kind of how he helps, lead the team in that way is, just he brings in guys that, collectively, bring everybody along with him. So I think that's part of the, like, they talk about our age a lot recently, and I think that's part of, one of the advantages that we have in our age is just a little bit more experience, a little bit more knowledge that, like, winning a big game is exciting and it's great, but, winning a big game just gives you opportunity for another one. So, you kind of have to refocus and get with that, and, hopefully our older guys are able to impart a little bit of knowledge on the younger guys that haven't been there before, and hopefully that helps us out, and I feel like it has so far this year.
Zach and then Nicole.
Coach Sig took a rare moment to kind of reflect a little bit yesterday. He called the last couple of years surreal for him. So when you reflect from going as a walk-on in 2020 to now 5 years later preparing for a national championship, how would you describe this journey you've been on specifically?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, what I dreamed about, just when I started all that. So it's kind of like a dream come true. I thought, I always believed in myself that I had the ability to do this. But to see it all play out, I gotta thank the man upstairs because it's just you can't do it yourself. You can't do any of this yourself. I've been lucky to have a good set of circumstances where I was not only able to get an opportunity to be on scholarship, but then able to play for a really good team here and compete for a national championship. So it's just a lot of opportunities that you get. It's something special. It's a really cool thing to be a part of. I haven't really fully reflected on it yet. I'm kind of focused on this next game, but hopefully after this next game, I'll kind of have a second to really sit down and think about that.
We'll go top left to Nicole, and we'll wrap up with Jim.
Obviously, everything throughout prep and in game is very businesslike. Curt Cignetti asks you guys to play 1 to 150 the same. But have there been moments in which football has felt fun during this run, especially with the dominance it feels like you guys have experienced during games?
Yeah, definitely. I think, for me, everyday football is fun. It's definitely a business-like approach, and that you have to be intentional about everything that you're doing. You kind of have to be on top of your stuff. But I think, the day football isn't fun for me, I'm not going to play anymore. I love the sport. I enjoy it a lot, and I think that's a great balance that you have to strike is enjoying yourself and having fun with the sport while also being able to approach it like it is a little bit of your job. But I think there's definitely every moment, every time I get to step out on that field, I'm having fun. I'm enjoying it. But it's just that mentality of this is serious work. That this does need a lot of focus and attention.
The last one, second row left to Jim.
Riley, when we get to this level, teams are so elite, and usually there are certain superstars that stand out. With this team, it is just a group across the board, especially the receivers are so deep. How fun is it to play in a situation where there is no true superstar? There's just a bunch of guys that are great, and you're one of them.
I mean, it makes my life a lot easier. You know, I like to say all the time, you know, you got so much skill on offense, so many great players on defense. Like, it really does, you know, it makes everybody's job easier, right? You know, we had 6 different guys score a touchdown last game. When, I mean, that's something special. You know what I mean? Like, to have 6 guys score a touchdown in the semifinals is insane. You know, it just speaks to, like you said, the depth that we have. You know, across the board. You know, it helps out all of our receivers because you can't solo one guy out. You know, we got 2 running backs that are both phenomenal, so you can't, you know, one guy gets tired, you just put the next one in, and there's no drop off. You know what I mean? It's like, I think that's just critical to, you know, how successful our team has been. And then obviously you got the defense too. I mean, you got guys all over the place making plays, you know, and we've had some guys, you know, go down, but the next guy steps up and he's making plays too. You know, and Daniel Dugway, he had 2 sacks and a block punt. You know, I mean, that's huge, you know, and that's a guy that, you know, hasn't played much this season, but, you know, he comes in and, you know, he's played in the Rose Bowl and now the Peach Bowl, and, you know, it's just had a big impact in both those games, which is just huge. You know, it speaks, like I said, to all the talent that we have all around. You know, it's a joy to be a part of. You know, like I said, it makes my job easier. You know, you don't have to fight and scratch as much. You know, it kind of get things a little bit more opened up. So I'm definitely happy to be a part of it.
Great. Thanks, Riley.
No problem.